that there is that first case of yellow fever. Now, for more on that report by the election, let's now go to another story concerning the just ended by-elections in Kericho, and the ELOG, an observation group, has issued a report, and a report that has they have said that what KANU, who lost through their candidate Paul Sang, have been saying that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission did manipulate the electoral results in Kericho, was manipulated, saying that that is just political propaganda. They have dismissed KANU's contributions to that debate. Let's now joining KTN's Michelle Ngelle, who has been following this story and was at that release, at the launch of that report by ELOG. And Michelle, if you can hear me, what is coming out of this report? We are hearing that KANU, that ELOG are saying that they have dismissed KANU's allegations against the IEBC. What else is standing out in this report?
Much, Ben. Now, of course, the recently concluded by-elections in Kericho and Malindi were a litmus test for the country in assessing the state of preparedness of the next election in 2017. And the Elections Observation Group, also known as ELOG, today revealed its report and its findings on the recently concluded by-elections in both Kericho and Malindi. And what comes out from the report, according to ELOG, is that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission was well prepared for the two by-elections, despite the few issues that the by-elections had to deal with, including delay of delivery of voter material. But these issues were compensated by increased time on the day of the elections. That is according to ELOG. And this is a bit against what leaders have been saying, especially after those by-elections. We had a leader in the National Assembly, leader of majority in the National Assembly, Aiden Duale, say that the IEBC should be disbanded because of the sloppy way in which they conducted the by-elections, especially in Malindi. But now we have this election observer coming out and saying that IEBC indeed did quite a good job. Now, what came out mostly from these by-elections, Ben, of course, is the KANU party contesting the votes of the recently released Kericho senatorial by-election, saying that the IEBC had announced Aaron Chariot of JAP as the winner with about 109,000 votes, compared to Paul Sang, who had about 56,000 votes, Paul Sang of KANU. Now, KANU leaders came out to say that there were major discrepancies in the way that election was conducted, saying that Paul Sang of KANU actually garnered 126,000 votes and not 56,000 votes as had been announced by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. In fact, this past Sunday, KANU leaders revealed a dossier which had all the evidence, they say, of the discrepancies during that election. And among that evidence, they say, is a progression formula that was used by the ruling party in conjunction with the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to rule in favor, at least the winner, to have the winner in favor of the ruling coalition. Now, what the Elections Observation Group, ELOG, is saying today is that is pure propaganda by the KANU party, insisting that when the claims of discrepancies and disputed results came out, they embarked on a bid to sort of ascertain the results, and what they came up with, that their results match the results that were given by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, and there were no discrepancies whatsoever. So ELOG now says that KANU is politicizing the results despite losing fairly and squarely to the Jubilee Party.
Michelle, so ELOG has dismissed those claims by KANU. There were other issues like reports of violence reported in Malindi. So is ELOG saying there were no other issues whatsoever in the two by-elections?
What's interesting in this, Ben, ELOG maintains that the IEBC was fairly prepared for these by-elections, but then again they come out and give all these discrepancies, like the fact that in Kericho there was the use of opaque ballot boxes as opposed to transparent ballot boxes, which is what is required by the Constitution. They also pointed out issues like governors in both Kericho and Malindi, and from both factions in the political parties in those areas used state resources to influence voters. And we had several of these instances, especially in Malindi, where we had several Jubilee leaders arrested in conjunction with the same claims. We also had a story of a woman being assaulted by members of ODM, allegedly, for being paid to influence voters in the area. They also pointed out issues like cabinet secretaries campaigning for political parties, which is contrary to the constitution. And an example of that was the recently appointed cabinet secretary Charles Keter in Kericho. But despite all this, and despite all those irregularities that the ELOG itself brings out, it says that they have noted an improvement in the conducting of elections in the country, and that they say the IEBC should be commended for doing so. However, they say that the Kericho and Malindi by-elections should serve as a lesson in improving the electoral process in the run-up to the 2017 general elections. And so they say now that the evidence that KANU has, or at least the evidence that KANU claims to have, should be forwarded to court. But if you remember, KANU has said it will not contest the winning of Aaron Chariot in court just yet. And this, ELOG says, is unconstitutional and undemocratic, and that they should have forwarded the results to court immediately.
Michelle, before I let you go, IEBC has been under fire from several quarters, especially the various political parties, especially the opposition coalition, called over the verification of Okoa Kenya referendum signatures. They did not meet the target for the first round of mass voter registration. Does this clean bill of health that the ELOG has given the electoral body, give them, a fresh lease of life?
Not really, Ben, because during this very same press conference, ELOG also noted that bodies like the IEBC and the judiciary, which really have lost the credibility in Kenyans' eyes, need to reassure Kenyans and win Kenyans' trust back. So the IEBC still has the mandate of making sure that it wins the trust of every Kenyan, with questions being raised, of course, over the credibility of the Commission in conducting the 2017 general elections. And of course, there has been a lot of discontentment with the IEBC, not just in these by-elections. Of course, like you mentioned, the Okoa Kenya bid by the opposition, IEBC says it's in the final stages of verifying the signatures of the Okoa referendum bid. And the court leaders have, however, hit out at the IEBC several times, accusing it of colluding with the ruling government in several elections, actually, even the Kericho and Malindi by-elections. And it now says that the IEBC has been compromised. We have had several calls for the dissolution or the disbandment of the IEBC so far. So I wouldn't say that what ELOG said is a clean bill of health for the IEBC, but then again, we must give credit where it's due. And the election observer says IEBC did quite a good job in the two by-elections, so we definitely need to give credit where it is due. What remains now on the part of the Commission is winning back the trust of Kenyans.
Thank you, Michelle. KTN's Michelle Ngelle was at the launch of the report by ELOG on the two by-elections that happened just slightly more than 2 weeks ago. Shall be bringing you more footage and sound bites from that particular press conference later on, or here on KTN News Desk.